The marathon negotiations between the Air India management and representatives of 8 unions of the national carrier got over a short while ago in Delhi, but no breakthrough yet in the standoff over payment of salaries and arrears. Around 20,000 employees, including 400 pilots of the former Air India, have called for a no pay, no work from Monday in protest against the non-payment of around 4 months of salaries and allowances. That could see a complete disruption of Air India's international operations and could impact even domestic flights. The government has agreed to pay only 1 month's arrears and more subject to the availability of funds. Unions say that it's simply not good enough. But with what's happening in Air India, the protests we're seeing over employees not being paid for months, similar to what's happening in another major private airline, Kingfisher Airlines, where again, no issues have been resolved on salaries. They've introduced a holding policy where they've asked employees to stay at home till problems are sorted out with no pay. They said no layoffs just yet, but stay at home with no pay. Joining me for tonight on the mess on India's aviation. Frankly, if you can't pay salaries, how can the India's aviation industry grow? Former Civil Aviation Minister Rajiv Pratap Rudy. I'm also joined by Jatinder Bhargav, former director with Air India. I'll be joined by Renuka Chaudhary of the Congress as well. But Mr. Rudy, over to you first. The most fundamental issue really of running any industry will be its personnel. When you see what's happening to Air India, and this after an assurance from the Prime Minister in August last year that means would be found to pay wages, what would you say?
Well, Air India is a completely different story. And before I come to Air India, I would like to tell you that let's talk about the aviation sector today. And what has happened is that aviation sector vis-a-vis the aviation ministry, the commitment of the government politically can be very well assessed that it is being tossed across to various states as a auction to state elections. First it was sent to the minister from Kerala because there were elections there. Then it was sent over to Uttar Pradesh where there were elections recently. And if the government of India and the Prime Minister has a view that the Civil Aviation Ministry has to be auctioned to elections, I don't see much future at the policy level. Right. It's a very peculiar situation today. It's a very peculiar situation today that most of the airlines, whichever airlines you talk, even those which are going in losses, yes, the passengers are growing, the revenue is growing and the losses are growing. Can anyone answer me why this is happening? And can the government realize that this is a question. The revenue is going up, yes, the passenger load is going up in certain airlines and the losses are going. So there is something inimically wrong with the aviation sector which the government is not ready to address. And that is the most critical aspect. When you come to Air India, I would refrain from making any comments because you see, today the entire market, the market leader for last 2 years in the market, the fare leader has been Air India. So an Air India, which is a full cost airlines, yes, runs its services at the cost of low cost airlines and it sells tickets at the low cost. It becomes the fare leader, thereby creating a situation where all the other lines to compete and match the market, they match Air India. Now Air India is a typical example where again the revenue is going up, the passenger load is going up and the losses are going up heavily again. Now, how do you assess? How do you finally react to this situation which has been created? Right, young boys and girls, the employees of Kingfisher are being laid off. It is a different story. But any airline shutting off in this country is bad for the economy, is bad for the country. Why can't the government realize that?
You talked about the young boys and girls of Kingfisher being laid off, staying at home, whatever they call it. Kingfisher refused to appear on this program, as did current Air India. But of course, I've got just to get a first-hand account, I've got Mr. Y.S. Deka with me, employee of Air India, also one of the union officials. Mr. Deka's salary is not being paid. Now, in many ways, it comes as a news scroll. But what is the reality of the fact that when you don't get paid a salary for 4 months from December onwards, how are Air India employees actually surviving?
What do you expect? There is a negativism everywhere. And without salaries and today's escalating costs, one can just imagine what we must be all going through. But having said that, things are, like I agree with Mr. Rudy, when he said that the revenues are going up. First time we are upbeat about the passenger load factor. We are also happy about the on time. The cargo is going up. But at the same time, there's no money to pay the salaries. We feel today, of course, there has been some development. Some money has been paid, which I can say on record, that an installment has been released. And I just hope, and also a schedule has been drawn up. So one just hopes that they keep to the schedule and to keep up the morale of the staff, which as of now, they're holding on with resilience, but it is at rock bottom.
Let me get a Jitinder Bhargav here from an insider view really of how Air India functions and what actually goes on. Mr. Bhargav, there's two ways of looking at Air India. In one sense, we see most political parties are united. This is a national carrier. It's a symbol of pride. The government should continue bailing it out. We've seen that it costs the government about 10 crores a day to keep Air India afloat. Revenue is going up of the airline, yet salary is not being paid. What are these essential contradictions with the way India looks at Air India? And do we perhaps need to completely redefine this relationship? Can the government afford to keep bailing Air India out? Or do you feel that at the current moment, the aviation industry has no choice?
See, there are two aspects to it. One is what Mr. Rudy said, that the number of passengers is going up, the revenues are going up, and losses are going up. But what he has omitted is a reference to the fact that the costs are going up. The ATF prices are at a record high. As a result of it, there is a deficit. Now, coming to the point that, yes, Air India will need governmental assistance, financial bailout. Now, I would again say there are two aspects to it. A, the losses that Air India is incurring are rising out of government decision on aircraft purchase and on hasty merger, which has not ensured a proper united Air India to come and reap the advantage of the market, growing market. The second aspect is the operational inefficiencies that come along with the government setup. Right. Now, you have to address these intrinsic problems if you are operating in a highly competitive environment.
Do you have the NDTV Profit app? All the markets, all the news and your own homemade, ready-made portfolio available there for you.
We will right now answer what you should sell, what you should buy when markets are down.
Download at ndtvprofit.com/apps. Get the best app from the channel you trust.